Hey, I'm back at the law offices of Cohen and Richardson, and joining me again is Jeffrey Cohen. Good to see you again.
Good to see you.
In part 2 of our 3-part interview, Jeffrey Cohen shares general legal advice specifically regarding what web hosters can do to protect themselves from spammers.
So with regards to 3FN in San Jose, California, who was recently shut down by the FTC, federal regulatory body, can you give us and our viewers some advice as to how web hosters can protect themselves from getting shut down by the FTC, for example, or any federal agency, if they're hosting spammers but are doing the best they can to try not to? I don't know if I'm being clear enough, but you get my point? Okay.
I do. The 3FN case that's been filed by the FTC, if you believe their allegations, and I don't know anything about that company in particular, I've certainly not represented them, but the allegations that are made in that case by the FTC allege that the actions of that company were pretty egregious and intentional. So I don't think that case by itself stands for the proposition that the FTC is out to get web host companies. I think there's a long way to go before that would really become a concern. But it does raise the question of how prudent a web hosting company should be in their compliance with all federal and state requirements. And it certainly points out, I think some people were actually surprised that the FTC has the ability to seek an injunction shutting down a web hosting company, and they certainly do as a branch of the federal government, or they receive their authority as underneath a branch of the federal government, and they have the ability to seek that kind of injunction. For example, the spam laws, if the FTC writes a letter to you as a web hosting company saying that your users are violating the law and they want your cooperation and information from your company with proper subpoenas or whatever your policies are, one would do well to probably try and comply with those requirements. Now, that's not to say you need to sell out your customers either. You need to make sure that you're doing what is required. Disclosing customer information prematurely without a reason to do so can get a web hosting company in some trouble also. So really the number one thing is to have a relationship with somebody who is an expert in internet law.
Like you.
Like us, and there's a few others that I would say that are qualified as well, but certainly internet litigators is one avenue to an attorney that can handle that, where they can pick up the phone and call and say, hey, we've got this letter, or we've got this concern on our own. Is this a potential problem? We've noticed, one of our clients is doing this. What should we do? For $4.95, $10.95 a month, if that's what they're paying for shared web hosting these days, it may not be worth the trouble to continue to allow your customers to do that. So having policies that allow you to safely, adequately, properly suspend or terminate, an account, I think is an appropriate avenue for a web hosting company in the first place. There's other smaller strategies, there's other larger strategies that a web hosting company can engage in to make sure that they're operating above board as well, and to make sure that the FTC, the FBI, or SEC or other government agencies don't come knocking, because that's not something you want to do. And then also, from looking at the investigation that was filed, if the FTC does come knocking on your door, to ignore them is probably not a good idea.
No.
Yeah. Putting that in the to-do pile is not something that I would recommend.
Turning the lights out and pretending no one's home, not a good idea.
Probably not.
Yeah. So, how much authority does, for example, the FTC need in order to go in and, either investigate or just shut down? Is it one spammer? Is it 25?
If you hit the FTC's radar, then they have all the authority they need with one instance. I think the FTC, like any other governmental agency or any other business, is really going to go after low-hanging fruit. This one in particular is at least alleged to be very egregious. And that's why they were sort of the first, they've been made an example of, I suppose. But no, there's absolutely the authority.
So it's kind of a new era. Do you think that now that this is happening, web hosters have to start thinking about having somebody on board to protect them from whether it be egregious people who are using their services or even just federal agencies?
A relationship with adequate, well-informed business counsel familiar with the internet is crucial to the operation of a successful web hosting business and any other internet business, and frankly any business.
And that's not new news. I mean, most web hosters, do they have representation, or do you feel like maybe it's a gray area they don't know yet, or?
There are, because it's so easy to get into the business.
Right.
It takes a person and a server, and you can be in the web hosting business. There are a lot of companies that do not have representation. It's an afterthought in many instances. Those are the individuals, and the reason that we've created our program, Internet Litigators, to allow access for some of the smaller web hosting companies. Not on a fully prepaid basis, but on a basis that allows them not to have to pay a huge retainer. There are ways that you can get access to an attorney that you should probably have access to, especially in the beginning. Forming the business is one of the things that we help our clients with quite often. So it's not just waiting till the FTC calls. It's a matter of, should we be an LLC? Should we be a corporation? How do we form the corporation? Do we need a user agreement? Yes, is the answer to that. Do we need a privacy policy in California? Yes, is the answer to that. And who's going to write it for us? Should we steal it from somebody? Is that a good idea? Those are the questions that I think even somebody small would be prudent if they set up the ability to have access to.
Well, thank you for sharing with us all of your knowledge and information regarding these topics, and I'm looking forward to speaking with you a third time about internet law, litigation, and how it works.
Anytime.
Be sure to join us next time for our final installment of our 3-part interview with Jeffrey Cohen, where we discuss California state law and web hosting.